UFC hot takes I am 100% sure of. In this video, I'm going to go through 8 of my hot takes, and I want to get you guys' takes. Now, I will say I can only speak from my experience. I've had people tell me that they completely disagree with what I'm saying in these topics. So some of you guys will agree with these, some of you guys will disagree. The last time I did one of these videos, I got absolutely roasted. People were like, haha, Unk MMA hot take, Volk becomes champion. Like, they were roasting me because my hot takes weren't actually hot takes. So let's see if I've upped my game in the last 6 months, because it's been 6 months since I've done one of these videos. And yeah, with that being said, if you enjoy these kind of videos, do me a favor and drop a like, and let's get right into it. My first hot take: Islam Makhachev's title reign is overrated. Now, let me clarify. Overrated does not mean bad. Overrated simply means it's rated higher than it should be. I think that Islam Makhachev's title reign could have been so much better if instead of short notice Volk, he beat Charles a second time on a full training camp. If instead of Moicano, he beat Arman Tsarukyan in his prime. I think that Islam's title reign could be so much better, because if we look at Islam's last 3 title defenses, right? Not his first one against Volkanovski, that's amazing. Not his title win against Charles, that's amazing. But if you look at his last 3, there's asterisks on all 3, in my opinion. Volkanovski on 11 days notice. It was fat Volk off the couch. I know it's still Volk, but he was coming off of arm surgery on 11 days notice. There's not a planet in this universe where Volkanovski comes in on 11 days notice and beats Makhachev. So Makhachev was going to win that fight at 999 times out of 100. Then he fights Dustin Poirier, old man Poirier, who was on a 1-fight win streak, coming off a head kick KO to Justin Gaethje, beats Benoit Saint Denis, number 11 at the time, and Poirier gets a title shot against Makhachev, and it's arguably Makhachev's toughest fight of his entire career since he went on his win streak. He went to life and death with Poirier, and a lot of Makhachev fans will cope and be like, dude, it's because he had staph infection. Makhachev said leading up to the fight that he was 100% in that fight. There was no excuses. He was good. They asked him about the staph. He completely downplayed it and said it wasn't a factor. And this is part of the reason why I think Islam's going to lose to JDM, man. He could not barely take down old Dustin Poirier with one hip. I'm not saying that he didn't take him down, but look at what Khabib did to Poirier, you know? Charles choked out Poirier. Khabib absolutely mauled Poirier. Even Conor McGregor pulled the guillotine on Poirier. Poirier's been taken down by Chandler. He's been taken down by a bunch of guys in the UFC. And Islam made it look like it was his toughest thing he's ever done in his entire career. So, yes, I'm holding that win against Islam. I know he finished Poirier in the 5th round. It was an absolute barn burner. But if your title reign is supposed to be as goated as people claim Islam's is, then you run through Poirier, just like Khabib did, just like all these other guys did. No offense. I'm not shitting on Poirier, by the way. I love Poirier, one of my favorite fighters. He's from my hometown. I'm just making a point that Poirier should not be on Islam's level. And he beat number 10, Renato Moicano, on a day's notice, man. Listen, dude, I know Moicano pieced up and destroyed BSD, but, dude, it's Moicano. Like, I'm not disrespecting Moicano. Islam did what he was supposed to do. He went out there and choked him out in a minute, but that does not compare to Arman Tsarukyan in his prime. I'm not trying to claim that Islam Makhachev's title run was completely garbage, because it's not. It's an amazing title run. It's arguably the best title run in lightweight history. I'd still rank it above Khabib's, but you can have the best title run and it be overrated at the same time. So all I'm saying is Islam Makhachev's title run could have been a lot better if instead of Volkanovski, he faced an Arman Tsarukyan or a Gamrot instead of facing Volk on short notice. If you guys don't know, Gamrot was actually the backup opponent instead of Volkanovski on short notice whenever Charles pulled out in the rematch. So it should have been him versus Gamrot. And yeah, people are going to say Gamrot lost to Hooker and all this. I get it, but styles make fights. If he had prime Arman Tsarukyan on his record, if he had prime Gamrot on his record, if he had a lot of these other guys that are in the lightweight rankings, then I would not be saying his title reign's overrated. And I understand also another part of it. I do understand that Islam Makhachev fighting these guys like Volkanovski and Moicano on short notice was out of his control, being that his opponents pulled out. But, man, at the end of the day, that's what it is. Like, that's what happened. So I have to judge on what his wins are. So in my opinion, Islam's title reign is amazing, but it is slightly overrated. Moving on to the next hot take. The UFC does not need more weight classes. I will stand by this all the time in my comment sections or in my streams. I see guys say, man, the UFC should add more weight classes. It would make it more interesting. Guys would have to cut less weight and all this other stuff. First of all, I don't think the answer to weight cutting is adding more weight classes. Guys in boxing still cut tons of weight, and yeah, that disproves that. But here's my reason why I do not think the UFC needs more weight classes. Number one, more belts equals less prestigious value. Yes, in general, in life, when there's more of something, the less valuable it becomes. If instead of 8 UFC belts, there's now 10 or 11, it would not mean as much to me win a belt as it was if there's only 8 of them. You know, it's harder to win a belt right now. It's what makes the UFC title so prestigious. And you would have to get rid of 170 to make this work. Listen, if you added more weight classes, 170 would have to turn into 165, and the prestigious welterweight division would be no longer 170. And I don't know, it would just be weird to not have a weight class that's always been there, just be gotten rid of. And let's point to boxing. So UFC has 8 men's weight classes, right? Flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, heavyweight. 8 of them, right? Look at flyweight. There's literally a weight class every 3 pounds. 112, 115, 118, 122, 126, 130, 135, 140, 147, 154, 160, 168, 175, 200 pounds, and heavyweight. That is how many weight classes? 17 weight classes versus the UFC's what? 8? Boxing has double the weight classes. Why do you think no one cares or even knows who the champion in boxing is right now? Because not only are there 4 different belt promotions, but there's also 17 weight classes. So it's like, oh, this guy was a 25 division champ. Yeah, well, I guess so. Every weight class is like 2 pounds apart. So I don't know. To me, adding more weight classes just waters down the divisions that are already there. And I don't think it's great for the sport, in my opinion. And I think the way the UFC does it right now is great. Maybe get rid of weight cutting and have guys fight more towards their natural weight. Like Islam obviously would probably be like a natural 170, whereas Dricus du Plessis would be a natural light heavyweight. Have guys fight without weight cutting. That would be a better solution than just adding more weight classes. And if you add more weight classes, you're going to have more guys wanting to fight for double champ. You're going to have more guys wanting to bounce up and down all around in weight classes. I don't know. I feel like it would cause more chaos than what it's worth. I like the way the current structure is. And for the people that say, like I said, it's to make less weight cutting, I don't think that's the answer to weight cutting. Guys are always going to cut weight. If you want weight cutting to be gone, the UFC or the commissions are going to have to implement a rule where they get rid of weight cutting. So yes, my hot take, the UFC does not need more weight classes. It is perfect the way it is. Moving on to the next hot take. Pantoja's pound for pound ranking is 100% fair. I hear a lot of people in my comments and in my stream saying, dude, the UFC continues to disrespect Alessandro Pantoja. How's he number 10 in the pound for pound rankings? Well, for one, I think pound for pound rankings matter about who you beat. And I'll be honest. In the pound for pound rankings, I would not mind Pantoja being above Alex Pereira. If you look at the pound for pound rankings, I have it on the screen. I would not mind Alex Pereira being below Pantoja or even John Jones being below Pantoja. John Jones has beaten nobody worthy of the pound for pound rankings in the last 5 years. He's beat Cyril Gane and Old Man Stipe. And Pereira's coming off a loss at not the strongest competition at light heavyweight. But let's look at Pantoja's resume. You know, I know they say pound for pound means like how your skills translate across weight classes, but I think it's more than that. I also think it's who you beat. And I think what people do with Pantoja is they draw the narrative that, oh, dude, he's lapping his division. He beat Moreno and Royval twice, and you know he's beat everybody, and he has 3 title defenses. But you can't just look at the numbers and saying he's lapping a division. You have to look at his actual wins, right? His last 2 wins, in my opinion, have done nothing to get him up the pound for pound rankings. Let's look at his last win was against a debuting Kai Asakura. Right? The Kai Asakura had never fought in the UFC, came in, debuted to get a title shot against Pantoja. They were trying to build the Japan market. And Pantoja absolutely steamrolled him. He ran right through him, and he submitted him. But I'm sorry, dude, that doesn't do anything for pound. You're not beating a guy. Like, you're not going to win like beating a guy up a weight class like Merab. You're not beating a guy who's championship worthy. You're beating a guy from a B-League promotion that's never fought in the UFC. And then he beat the number 8 guy, right? In Steve Erceg. And he arguably lost that fight. A lot of people thought that Steve Erceg did enough to get the nod. And guess what? Since that fight, Steve Erceg's on a 3-fight losing streak since losing to Pantoja. So that has not aged well. So Pantoja's last 2 wins are a guy who's was a guy debuting in the UFC and a guy who was ranked number 8 that nearly beat him, who's now on a 3-fight losing streak. Tell me, in what world does this deserve Pantoja to be top 5 pound for pound? Am I missing something? Or are y'all just looking at his raw skills? Because let's be real, man. Sometimes Pantoja don't have the highest fight IQ. Sometimes he's out there slugging and banging whenever he should be taking guys down and trying to get a submission on the ground where he's the strongest. And I'm not trying to disrespect Pantoja. I'm simply saying I think if he wants to move up in the pound for pound rankings, he needs to be beating guys like Manel Kape. He needs to be beating guys like Kai Kara France, who are at the top of his division. He needs to be beating guys like Arguably Brandon Moreno or Royval in a trilogy if they get another win. I understand he's already beat those guys, but listen, his last fight with Brandon Moreno was very close. It was a split decision. He didn't like dominate Brandon Moreno. So yeah, man. And like another thing, he did the two guys he's beat at the top of his division are already guys he had wins over. So I know I'm yapping. I know I'm saying that he should beat Moreno a third time. But my point is he's done nothing in his last two wins to move up the pound for pound rankings. So all the people saying that Pantoja deserves to move up in the pound for pound rankings, can you explain to me why? You cannot simply say because he's winning fights. Competition matters when it comes to the pound for pound rankings. And yeah, I think that's a hot take because nearly everybody I see say Pantoja should be higher in the pound for pound rankings. Moving on to the next hot take. And I have John Jones in the picture because he's the poster boy for this. But not defending your title, your belt in one calendar year should result in the fighter that's not defending their title being stripped. I think this would solve a huge problem of log jams in divisions. We have champions all the time, specifically John Jones, and not so much in the other weight classes, but John Jones specifically, that are not defending their belt for a year, year and a half, and the UFC's allowing these guys to just stay on top of their division. If you cannot defend in a calendar year, no more interim titles. The UFC's proven time and time again, interim titles mean absolutely nothing. Look at Tom Aspinall and other guys that have been interim champ. Tony Ferguson. Interim championships mean jack squat, so no more interim titles. And the fighter stripped of the title for not defending for a year, they can get immediate title shot upon their return. This would solve all the problems. No more champions sitting out for 2 years not defending their belt. No more Dominic Cruzes, no disrespect. No more John Joneses. If you cannot defend your title in 365-day calendar year, then you need to be stripped and we need to move on. We need to get the division moving, put on a vacant title fight between the next two contenders, and upon your return, you can get a title shot. That way, like I said, man, we're just getting so many log jams in divisions from guys just not fighting. And I feel like this might put a little bit of pressure on the champions to say, hey, man, I only have X amount of time to defend my title. I need to get in training camp, et cetera, et cetera. And to be honest, this wouldn't even be that much of a big change because outside of John Jones, there hasn't been too many champions in recent years that haven't defended their belt in more than a year's time. So this is obviously specifically a jab at John Jones because he obviously has been the UFC heavyweight champion since 2023, and he's defended his belt a grand total of one time, and we're now in 2025. So yeah, man, I think it's time to move on from the whole you're champion for 20 years and you defend every 5 years. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, hot take, not defending your belt in one calendar year should result in such fighter being stripped of their belt. Moving on to the next hot take. If DDP beats Khamzat Chimaev, he is officially the middleweight GOAT now. If you look at Anderson Silva's record in the UFC, it's 17-7, right? If DDP beats Khamzat, he would be 10-0 in the UFC, right? I know a lot of people are going to roll their eyes because of the whole 10 title defenses of Anderson Silva, right? People cling on to that number 10. And if you look at DDP's notable wins, Darren Till, Derek Brunson, Robert Whitaker, Sean Strickland ×2, Israel Adesanya, and then if you were to add Khamzat Chimaev, I know I put Khamzat Chimaev, he obviously hasn't beat him yet, but if you were to add Khamzat Chimaev to that record, I think that this list of names, even though less, would be way better than Anderson Silva's resume because quality over quantity. Anderson Silva has quantity. Dricus would have quality. And to quote Lucas Tracy, if the reason that Anderson Silva was able to rack up so many title defenses, right, is because he fought for a UFC title. And whenever he got one win in the UFC, and then I believe he got a title shot after one win. If Dricus got a title shot after he got one win in the UFC, guess what? He would have 7 title defenses right now. So the UFC is just in a different age. You can't just debut in the UFC typically and get a title shot immediately. And yeah, man, Dricus has proven he's the top of the cream of the crop. He doesn't have a million losses at the end of his career like Anderson Silva. Obviously, he's still in his prime, and maybe that can happen later. But as it stands, in my opinion, if Dricus du Plessis was to go out there and beat Khamzat, he would be the middleweight GOAT. Khamzat is better than any fighter Anderson Silva's ever beat. Robert Whitaker is better than any fighter Anderson Silva's ever beat. Sean Strickland, Adesanya also might be better than any fighter that Anderson Silva ever beat. Dude, Anderson Silva, all of his wins, I think Derek Brunson is better than most of Anderson Silva's wins. I'm not even trying to be a hater, guys, but this old head narrative that Silva's the middleweight GOAT is disintegrating very fast. And in my opinion, you really have to look at Anderson Silva as being number 2 if DDP were to beat Khamzat, because it's Khamzat Chimaev is undefeated. And he's one of the biggest phenoms we've ever seen in the history of the sport. For Dricus to stop that force, be the first guy to beat him, one of the most skilled middleweights and wrestlers we've ever seen in the UFC, that's got to count for something. And I just think DDP's quality and having, 3 title defenses at that point would be enough to move him above Anderson Silva, because like I said, if DDP got a title shot in his first fight in the UFC or second fight, he would have 7 title defenses. He would be on the level of Anderson Silva, but it just doesn't work that way. You have to work your way up this day and age in the UFC, and that's what Dricus had to do. So the whole title defense number thing, to me, doesn't mean as much as it used to at once. So yes, if DDP beats Hamzat, I think he is the middleweight GOAT due to the quality of his wins being way better than Anderson Silva's quantity. Yeah, sorry. And the next hot take, Islam Makhachev wanting to become double champ. But that's not really the hot take. The hot take is defending your belt multiple times is more impressive than becoming double champ. I stand by this. I think that becoming double champ is one of the most overrated things. Like, you're going up to face another guy when you arguably have more skill than him, because, you know, like Lucas Tracy says, the lighter man's skill, it exists. You know, guys typically in lower weight classes have more skill than the fighter above. But either way, in my opinion, I think that defending your belt multiple times is just, why do you think that every fighter in the UFC only has anywhere between 1 and 3 defenses outside of Islam? Let's look at the UFC right now. Pantoja has 3 defenses, right? Marab has 1 defense. Alexander Volkanovski has 0 in his new title reign. Islam Makhachev had 4, right? JDM's a new champion, has 0. Bilal Muhammad has 0, right? Dricus du Plessis has 2. Magomed Ankalaev, new champion, had 0. John Jones has 1. So you see what I'm saying? It's so much harder to hold your belt in modern day UFC than it is to go up and beat a guy above a weight class, win 1 fight, and to say, oh, now I'm double champ. It's impressive, and there's a reason that only like 9 or 10 people have ever done it, but I think it's a bit overrated. And I think being able to defend your belt against all the hungry up-and-comers in your division for 5, 6, 7 times is extremely impressive. When's the last time that someone got above 5 title defenses? Kamaru reached 5, right? Israel Adesanya reached 5. Volkanovski reached 5. But when's the last time somebody got 6, 7, 8? It doesn't happen anymore in modern day MMA, because defending your belt in your own division and staying on top, beating multiple generations of fighters, it's unheard of. It's too hard. Guys are too well-rounded. And that's the simple reason why I believe that being in your own division and defending your title multiple times is just more impressive than going up and beating a guy above you in another weight class. Just 1 fight. You're beating a guy 1 fight, and then you become double champ, and that's it. Whereas defending your belt, you have to beat the best guys back to back to back in modern day MMA whenever guys are better than they ever have been. So in my opinion, I think that defending your belt multiple times is just more impressive than becoming double champ. Some people won't think that's a hot take, but there's a lot of people that think that double champs, like, oh, dude, if Islam becomes a champ in 2 weight divisions, he's automatically by far the greatest of all time. And I just kind of scoff at that. I think if Islam were to get 6, 7 title defenses in modern day lightweight, I think that would be better than him going up and beating JDM personally. But nonetheless, let's get on to the next hot take, which is Khamzat Chimaev has decent cardio. Now, I think that the narrative that Khamzat Chimaev has bad cardio is one of the biggest false narratives in the UFC. I'm not saying that Khamzat Chimaev has good cardio. I'm saying he has decent cardio, right? People talk about Khamzat Chimaev like he has the cardio of Michel Pereira. That's genuinely how they talk about him. Like, the second it hits the second round, Khamzat Chimaev is a fish out of water, and he's completely cooked, and he lost the fight. Well, guess what? Against the fight with Gilbert Burns, where he faced adversity and he had to come back, I believe he won that 3rd round. He won the fight. Maybe he won the 2nd round in the first, but I thought I can't remember if it was the 2nd or the 3rd, but nonetheless, Khamzat Chimaev has proved that he can go 3 rounds hard with Gilbert Burns, and he did in a very dogfight, arguably fight of the year in 2022. And a lot of people shit on him for his performance against Usman because he nearly lost that fight, or arguably fought to a draw, but he injured his hand in that fight, and it's not like Chimaev was fighting Usman looking like he was like about to die of exhaustion or cardiac arrest in the octagon. Like, yeah, sure, he slows down. I think the reason that people look at Khamzat and say he has bad cardio is because he's so dominant in the first round and just able to ragdoll guys. And when he's not able to do that in rounds 2, 3, and 4, people are like, yup, his cardio sucks. But I don't think a lot of people understand how hard it is to go in there and wrestle extremely hard like he does in the first round and be able to carry that across rounds 2, 3, and 4. That's extremely hard, and only guys like Marab can achieve such insane cardio. So my hot take is not that Khamzat Chimaev has good cardio. It's that he has decent cardio, and the narrative that he has complete garbage cardio is completely false. And I don't think that the second he gets out of the first round with Dricus that he's a completely cooked and a fish out of water. Do I think that if Dricus makes it past the first round, his chances go up significantly of winning the fight? Of course, because he's going to build and get better as the fight goes on. But the narrative that Khamzat Chimaev has 0 cardio and he's a first round merchant and he can't do anything outside the first round, I think is a bit overplayed, and I do think his cardio is decent. It's not good, but it's decent. It's not the worst you've ever seen. And last but not least, the last hot take that I have, John Silva beats everyone at featherweight right now. I genuinely believe this. I think he beats Volkanovski in his current state. Listen, Prime Volk would school John Silva most likely, but the current Volk that we just saw fight Diego Lopez, I'm sorry, man. He looked slower. He looked older. He got hit more than he ever has in his entire career. Go look at his face after that fight. And Volk still looked good. That's an older Volk, but he didn't look like Prime Volk. And I just think a guy like John Silva would KO Volk. He would capitalize. He wouldn't be... I think John Silva has more power than Diego Lopez. He has a lot more technique on the feet. He's proven that he's a submission threat on the ground against Bryce Mitchell. And another fighter that a lot of people would point that would beat him would be Movsar Evloev. I'm sorry, man. Movsar Evloev does not do anything to John Silva. He's not dangerous enough. What is Movsar Evloev going to do? He's going to hold John Silva on the ground? I don't think so. I think John Silva will threaten submissions, and I think on the feet, the whole time it's on the feet, Movsar Evloev is in danger of getting finished. He's just not a dangerous enough fighter to take out a guy like John Silva. And then people are also going to say, well, dude, people said the same thing about Diego Lopez when he faced Movsar Evloev. Like they said Diego Lopez would be too dangerous. But that was Diego Lopez on a week's notice. I'm talking about John Silva on a full training camp. I think he beats Movsar. I think he beats Volkanovski. And I'm talking about the current Volkanovski. I'm not talking about Prime. Obviously, I would think Topuria would beat him, but Topuria is up at lightweight now. I think he beats Volkanovski. I think he beats Movsar. I think he beats Yair. I think he beats Brian Ortega. I think he beats Arnold Allen. I think he beats all those guys just because simple factor that he's dangerous. He's willing to put himself in the fire to get finishes, and he's just running through everybody in the UFC. And I just don't see a guy at featherweight that, like even Movsar, every fight that Movsar has had at the higher level, he's damn near fought to a split decision. Aljamain Sterling barely won that fight. Arnold Allen arguably lost that fight. Diego Lopez barely won that fight. You see what I'm saying? Who does Movsar dominate? You're telling me he's going to go in there and dominate John Silva in the grappling? No, he's going to get knocked out or he's going to get submitted on the ground. So yes, I think John Silva right now, as it speaks, is skill for skill the best featherweight on the planet. And you could argue that Volkanovski's more skilled, and I wouldn't be mad at that, but I just think Volkanovski with his chin, being older, slower, not as fast of reflexes, past his prime, I do think that a modern-day John Silva would be able to take out the current version of Volk. And yeah, these are my current-day hot takes of the UFC right now. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with all of these in the comments. I like doing these videos. It's been a while since I've done one, so drop a like if you guys enjoy these kind of videos. And that'll be it, guys. I'm out. Peace.